Hi guys, Thogrey here with a new video, and this video will be my 2v2 tier list video for Wrath of the Lich King Season 5. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about casters and raged today. If you want to watch my previous video about melees, be sure to check it out at the end of the video. You will see a pop-up, and you just had to click it so you can watch it. But of course, stay on this one. Thumbnails in the description so you can pass over whenever you want to hear a specific class, or you are doing something and you didn't hear something quite right. You can just go back and then watch that segment. So thank you for already clicking on the video. Like the video if you like those kinds of content, and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Let's start right away with hunters. I'm going to talk class by class, and of course spec by spec. Let's start with BM hunters. And in 2v2, whenever you're playing with an enhancement shaman, because you can play beast cleave without a healer, you can play with a paladin, which is basically a worse version than marksmanship, because marksmanship gives you more CC possibilities, I would say. But BM hunters, they have easy access, like damage. You can do damage with your pets, you can do best your wrath, and pretty much do a god mode on a lot of classes. Especially now with arenas, we have a lot of people skipping over resilience and play full PvE, which is great for damage, but those guys are just going to die instantly. Of course, you have kill shot level 80, of course, and you can decimate people really fast. Your traps can be super clutch. Yeah, I feel like BM hunters are really not that bad. But is it better than the other options here? I would say it is B tier. It doesn't mean that it is bad. It just doesn't mean that it is overly overpowered. So you could really climb with your BM hunters, with a DPS or with a healer. I would probably recommend playing with an enhancement shaman. I think it's one of those comps that are very fun to play, and also playing against is also quite fun because it is a very dynamic combo. Your games will last very short, and you will have a great time. So let's talk now about survival hunter. Survival hunter, they have more damage than BM hunters, but you do miss Bishop Wrath, which gives you an immunity to fear, for example, and being unstoppable can give you some leniency to win some games. You have explosive shot. You have also black arrow, although you will probably prefer to trap. If you get some lock and load procs, you can really kill people easily and fast. I think you will have to play with a healer because you do need to play long game, because your damage will be very good at the long game, while in short games you will have the lack of burst that you have to build up to have, because you will not have a local load proc from the get-go, because you do need to do a freezing trap, for example, and you don't want a freezing trap for nothing. You want freezing trap so you can burst. And I feel like survival is at the same level as BM. It does alright damage. It is one of those specs that are very fun to play, but also very fun to play against. But I don't think it's on par with MM, and I don't think it is as OP as the other specs. Of course, I'm going to say it's B tier, but it is really crossing that A tier, tier. Because again, I think I'm just comparing it with other specs, and if I compare it, I feel like it's a B tier spec. MM Hunter, for me, it's a S tier spec. It has insane damage. It is super difficult to deal with for a lot of specs. I would say that freezing trap, being freezing arrow, being able to actually launch or trap, in contrary of TBC where you have to walk up and then trap, now it is a lot easier. So you can scatter shot, trap, and you're good to go. And versus double DPS, that combo is very hard to deal with. If you're playing versus a healer, it gives you also the possibility to trap the healer. and gives you the possibility to actually kill the DPS. You also have a silencing shot, so basically you have a silence, which the other specs like Hunter specs, Survival, and BM don't have. You have, of course, aim shot, but normally the other specs will have aim shot. You also have camera shot, which is basically a way to really burst someone down or deal with Blade Storm by disarming it. But you can also do readiness and do double camera shot for the damage, and that is also a possibility. And that's why for me it is a S tier spec. It has loads of comps to play in. It has some of the most dynamic damage profiles because again, you are always on the move and still your damage is very good. While other specs, they will have to plant their feet or kite or even just walk up like a paladin, and whenever he gets kited, a paladin will not do damage. While a marksmanship hunter, kited or not, you will do damage. Rural Sacrifice is also one of those epic pet abilities that really can save you the match, and for me, hunters in a whole are one of the A or S tier classes. But if I have to rank those specs, it would be S tier for MM, B tier for survival, and BM. Let's talk about Elemental Shaman. Elemental Shaman in twos is, for me, it is not S tier because you will see the games will last long, because if people are smart, they don't need to head on fight the Elemental Shaman. They can just run through pillars, try to not get free casted by the Elemental Shaman, and whenever they have CDs, they will go in. The problem is with fighting versus Elemental Shaman, Astra Shift is very big. So every time you stun or even silence, I think, silence and stun the Elemental Shaman, they get a wall. So basically they can have a big uptime on wall at any given time. So whenever you stun them and you're prepared to want to use your one shot, that is not possible with Elemental Shaman. While for example a Warlock that is stun locked, they can do a lot of, they can deal or take a lot of damage. So for me it's a A tier spec. Really, one of those specs are really defining the meta, but more in 3v3 than in 2v2. And Elemental Shaman is so good that it still warrants a tier spot, but I can't give the S tier spot because it gets kited way too much, and you will have to take a lot of risks, or even comp-wise, a lot of risks to have fast games. Balanced Druid. For me, Balanced Druid is not half bad. People are really exaggerating on how they think Boomkin is bad in twos, because in twos, you just need one stun lock and you only need one starfall to kill someone. And trust me, they will use their stun only whenever you're starfalling. And that means that you will have an easier time to actually cast, but also kite and also survive. Because if they use their stun only whenever you're doing a starfall, so they can stop the starfall damage or incapping or whatever, that means that you are pretty much free the whole game. And whenever you have a stun with, for example, a rogue playing with you, or a holy paladin playing with you, or another hybrid or whatever, someone that has actually a stun, you can dish a lot of damage. And I already saw a hit of 3k starfall damage. Like it's actually insane. So for me, I would say it's B tier. People are putting it in D tier for some reason, but for me it's B tier because they have huge comps. Of course, you cannot play any comp because you do need some peel, but you also need some heal or some heavy CC, like for example a rogue. And it is a risk. People can just shut down every time you're star falling, but that means that you have other openings from your teammate towards the enemy team. And if your teammate knows how to play and he does a shadow dance and nobody's stopping him, yeah, goodbye man, you're going to die really quickly. So now let's talk about mages, and I'm so excited to talk about mages because it's not like Shadowlands. Mages in Wrath are actually killable, and that's one of those things that are very good for like the health of the game, because it means a fire mage, a frost mage, or even heck a arcane mage can do huge amounts of damage if they are left unnoticed. But if you're like kiting, now you're going into the mage, you're trying to stop them at any cost. That is also possible, and they can die. A warrior having the mage melee is just a death sentence for that mage. No pun actual intended, but really it is one of those specs, one of those classes that are actually fun to play against, but also fun to play with. So let's talk about Fire Mage. In 2v2, I would say it is one of those high risk, high reward specs. Um, it's very hard to put them low because I feel like the damage that they can deal and the throughput that they can actually have is actually insane. Of course, I would play Fire Mage with a healer or with another caster. I would not try to play with a rogue because you don't have the amount of CC you have in Shadowlands. So if you want to play a Fire Mage, that is possible. Please try to pair yourself with a balanced druid, for example, or try to pair yourself with a Shadow Priest, which is huge, or with a Affliction Warlock or a Destruction Warlock or whatever, and you can do some sick damage. Don't forget, it is hard to play a mage in Wrath. People say that it's easy, but it is not. I'm not a mage main, so I'm not biased to that. But I feel like mages are one of those classes that you can really become better and better at to become actually good, right? So Fire Mage for me, it is at the same tier as Boomy, because again, it is comp wise something that you will have to take risks if you're playing with a DPS. If you're playing with a healer, it could be some games could be very very long. You can outplay people. You can have some sick procs and get some sick hot streaks, which could do a lot of damage. But again, it really depends on the comps you're playing, right? So for me, that's why it is a B tier spec. And people are putting Fire Mage even lower. Like I saw C tier and D tier, and that's exaggerating. Like it is very very good. It's not 3's level of good, but at least it is 2's level of good. And for me, B tier is actually good. It's average, but not bad. Frost Mage for me, it's A tier. I don't rate it as high as people because again, I feel like season 5 I would say is not the season for Frost Mages. I feel like it's not the main season where you're going to shine. You're going to shine in season 7, season 6 a bit, and season 8 you're going to become better, and then you have the melees becoming better too, but you are good at kiting melees, so that's a good thing. And for me, Frost Mages, if you're playing with a rogue, with a good rogue, you could climb not easily, but you could climb safely. You could play with a healer, but it is a lot slower. You could play with a double mage comp. Double mage is also insane. And just in general, I feel like mages are really in a good spot. So if you want a main mage, be sure to do that. And leveling is not as slow with a mage than with other specs, because you can solo Utgard keep. Arcane Mage. Arcane Mage is probably the first spec I'm going to put at C tier. I wouldn't. I don't think we have a lot of D tiers, but for me it's C tier because Arcane Mage is still a mage. I'm going to put him in D tier because I have to compare it with the other specs. I'm sorry guys, I do love my Arcane Mage. I do love how they deal damage. I do love how they look sick whenever they do big amounts of damage. But I have to be honest, if we are comparing with the other specs, it just deserves D tier. It doesn't mean that it's unplayable. It doesn't mean that it is garbage and you need to run away from that spec. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you compare it with the other specs from that tier, and even with melees, I feel like it's, I would say like Fury, you can make it work because you're still a mage. Like Fury, you can make it work because you're still a war. But if you want to climb reliably without any hassle, I would probably go for Fire Mage or Frost Mage. My personal favorite is Fire Mage. I guess I'm a bit biased, but for me, Arcane Mages is just so far away from all those other specs. So let's talk about Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest is really annoying to deal with. I think season 5 is still not their best season, and there is a bit of a lot. There's a lot of reasons because you need a lot of haste. You need a lot of resilience because you don't want to die. The more you survive, the more damage your dots will do, the more annoying it is to deal with as a healer. Especially if you're pairing yourself with an Affliction Warlock, you can be very, very annoying. Again, the main motto of arenas with a Shadow Priest is survive damage and you will win. If you're doing a good dispersion, you can really safeguard a lot of damage. And depending on your comp, if you play with a rogue or if you play with a mage or a warlock or even with another healer, you can really do some crazy shit. But I don't think it is S tier. I do think it is between A and B, and for the sake of comparing with Fire Mage Balance Druid and also BM and Survival, I feel like Shadow Priest is just a tad bit better because it has tools to actually CC, and Multi Spell is still something very nice to have versus a Holy Paladin. And I just think they are really good, so I'm going to put it at A tier. Okay, let's talk about Demonology. Demonology Warlock is it's hard to actually judge it because if they are left alone and they have like a full value demonology, like a demon form, they can kill people like super fast. But the only problem I see is it is actually squishy. It has a 3-minute CD burst that is actually stallable, so you can stop it. You can just stall and you will win the game because basically etymology warlock without demon form and without any procs from Soulfire is pretty much an affliction warlock, but a bit worse. So for me, it is C tier because it's still a warlock. You still have tools to actually defend yourself. I need to compare it with Arcane Mage, and they're just better because they have multiple schools as well. But also they do have some instances. You have also some procs that can help you. You are a bit more tanky. You have a pet that can also be annoying to deal with for a lot of specs. And in general, I feel like it is a alright spec. Is it fun? I don't know. I don't really play Demonology. Is it also hard to play against? I don't feel so. Whenever I'm playing Demonology Warlock, it is either super tanky but does no damage, or it is glass cannon but they do die in one stun. So for me, C tier it is. Affliction Warlock is for me super good. But I don't know if it's a 2v2 god or if it is not a 2v2 god. Because in trees, they are very good because I do play a bit of trees. Affliction Warlock is annoying to deal with. They do have insane damage. They have or they are already critting for a lot with corruption, and they will only do better and better with haste. And that's one of those specs where whenever you are in season 6, season 7, season 8, it is going to become S tier. But for now, in season 5, I don't feel like it's S tier in 2s. I do rate it high, so for me it's an A tier spec. It is harder to deal with than their other specs, like for example Destro and Demonology. And I do feel like Unstable Affliction is one of those spells that can really turn the tide because they cannot dispel. So it becomes very annoying for healers to actually deal with. My favorite comp would be Affliction Warlock with a Shadow Priest. It would be super strong versus Holy Paladin as well because you can mass dispel the bubble and then they are really naked. And that's why for me, Affliction Warlock do rate A tier. And it will only become better and better with seasons to come. Destruction Warlock for me it is B tier. Same reason as Fire Mage and Balance Druid. Whenever they are left alone, they can destroy people. You do notice people going for the Destruction Warlock to stop them from casting, but it is dealable. Again, you can get obliterated by Destruction Warlock, but really, it is manageable. It is not on a level of, let's say, Demonology, but it is also not on a level as an Affliction Warlock where the damage is quite free. With Destruction Warlocks, you will have to outplay the people, you will have to fear, you will have to Death Coil, Mortal Coil, excuse me. You will have to Shadow Fury, you will have to do a lot of things to actually achieve the good damage. But that's only in 2s. In 3s, I feel like Destruction Warlock will be super good and is super good, but we need to discuss about it in a future video. My next video will be about healers. We will talk about 2v2 healers. It will be a very short video because I'm going to talk about protection paladin, because I do rate it as a healer as well as a DPS, holy paladin, disc priest, resto druid, and resto shaman. Again, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Please like the video if you liked the video. Please comment below what you think about the tier list. Comment below about the meta. Comment below about anything you think about Wrath of the Lich King, and I'll respond to you as quickly as possible. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and be sure to be safe. We will catch each other very soon. Bye.